Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's doing well today. Today we're going to take a look at the FiiO K13 R2R headphone amp preamp ladder DAC. So do me a favor, sit back, relax, and we'll get started on this review. Well, before we get too far along, I'd like to say thank you to Apos Audio. Apos Audio was kind enough to send the K13 to me for review. It goes back to them when I'm done. And of course, they had no influence over the review, any of my conclusions, opinions, or otherwise. And also, in the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an Apos Audio affiliate link for this product in the pinned comment in the video description if you're interested in purchasing one. So what is the FiiO K13 R2R? Well, it is a big update over the original K11 R2R, which was a darling of a piece. And it's still a 24-bit, fully discrete ladder DAC, good powerful headphone amplifier. It has got some cool features through the FiiO Control app. Really, really neat. But let's first talk about the DAC. Well, at the heart of the K13 is its DAC, and it is a fully differential 24-bit R2R ladder array. Now there are 48 thin film resistors per channel, and because it's balanced, that means there are 4 total channels, so you have 192 resistors. Now each of the resistors is a 0.1% tolerance thin film resistor. And why is a 0.1% an important thing? Well, the tighter the tolerance, the less thermal drift a resistor can have. Their values can change with temperature. This way it stays solid and consistent, and unlike Delta Sigma DACs, that architecture reconstructs the analog waveform directly, and we avoid all of that oversampling and all of that oversampling filtering and those artifacts. Remember, a ladder DAC can decode natively a 16-bit or 24-bit word of PCM audio without any oversampling. That's what gives it its wonderful sound. Now the unit does have an oversampling mode, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think some of the advantages of an R2R ladder DAC are very quiet, low noise background. I mean, there is nothing in the background there. I think it has a very natural and organic tonal quality. I find this to be true of most ladder DACs. And very analog-like, and that of course is right in my wheelhouse. Now, being fully balanced means that you get that fully balanced, what's called common mode rejection. Because the waveforms are summed, anything that's common, which would be noise, is eliminated because it's out of phase with one another. So that's really nice, a really nice benefit on this particular one. And it's got some cool features like non-oversampling. So the K13 uses an XMOS XU316 processor, which of course is the asynchronous USB traffic cop inside the device, but they've also programmed in an interesting feature, and we'll talk about that in a second. It also uses an FPGA. Now, FPGAs can do DSP noise shaping, can do DSD decoding, but in this case, it gives us access to be able to run the unit in non-oversampling or oversampling modes. Now, I found, for me, non-oversampling mode had the best sound. It was, you know, remember, an R2R ladder DAC can decode a 16-bit or 24-bit PCM word, and that's the digital format for music, with 0 oversampling. So it goes through cleanly, it's not messed with. With Delta Sigma, they can only do 1 bit at a time. Remember, R2R can do all 16-bit or all 24 at one time. So Delta Sigma can only do 1 bit or 3 bits, it depends on the topography, and it has to oversample it to do that. So it oversamples sometimes up to 256 times. Now you got all that switching noise in there that you got to filter out, and that's what sometimes are referred to brick wall filters. Well, you can get that really strident kind of glary sound I've talked about before with Delta Sigma DACs. With the non-oversampling mode, you don't get that. With the oversampling mode, what it does is it takes everything in. Now, remember, the unit is limited 32-bit, 384 and DSD 256, and of course the FPGA handles the DSD. So any signal coming in, 1644, 2496, 24192, 32768, it's going to get resampled to 384 in oversampling mode, and that adds a little additional precision, a little additional clarity, maybe a little additional detail in it. I found the non-oversampling mode to be my favorite. And yes, I did put it in the big room, and we'll talk about that. But having those two options available allow you to tailor the sound. And then there's another option that allows you to tailor sound. We'll talk about that in a second. So I mentioned that the XMOS processor has a unique feature programmed into it, and it is a 10-band parametric EQ. Now, when we look at the front, you'll see you can access the preset modes, but through the FiiO Control app, you can create your own modes. I think you have up to 10 custom user creatable EQ settings, and then you can access them from here just by choosing which setting you want. Now, you can't adjust the EQ, but you can access the saved EQs. I think that's pretty cool. Now, it does have a really interesting feature, and you'll see it when we look at the back. It has the option to have two power supplies. You can run it on the regular IEC AC power socket, or it has a little switch and an input. You can run it at a 12-volt linear power supply, and I did that. So let's do this. Let's take a look at the front. Let's take a look at the back. I'm going to show you real quick the inside because you get the little viewing window on top, but then we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on the FiiO Control app so you get some understanding of how that works. Well, here we are looking at the front panel of the K13. It does come with a real nice remote control that if you're using it as a preamp, you can get volume control and so forth. You can scroll through the preset EQ modes, which we'll talk about in a second, and you can change your input settings and turn the unit on and off and change the lights and so forth and so on. So looking at the front panel, we've got our menu and input encoder, 4.4 millimeter Pentagon balanced output, our display, a 6.3 millimeter quarter-inch single-ended headphone out, and then our power and volume control. Well, right now we're running in a line-out mode, so we're showing 44K because it's USB in, and it says volume is at 100 because we're not using it as a volume control at all. So if you hit the menu button, what it does is it allows me to change my output from line-out, to PO, which is headphone amp only, to pre-out, so it becomes a preamplifier. The next setting I have is gain, so I can do low, medium, high gain if I want to, depending on the headphones. Next setting is oversampling, non-oversampling or oversampling mode, right? Very simple. And again, you hit the button to engage that setting. DSD at 1 bit, you can do DSD at 1 bit, or you can do DSD at D2P or DOP. Because it uses a FPGA to decode the DSD, you have some control over that. I never heard any difference, so I don't know. EQ off or on. Now, you'll see in the control app when we talk about it, there are a bunch of preset EQs and then 10 EQ settings you can set up. Now, I can go into the EQ, right now it's off, and I can have it do user 10, 9, there's a million of those as I mentioned, there's 10 user ones, and then there are some presets, right? DE1, so retro, hip hop, classical, R&B, dance, rock, pop, jazz, and then bypass the EQ altogether or just have the EQ be off. So you can access all those presets. In the app, you can actually change stuff. So then the next setting is balance left and right. UAC, this is USB setting, depending, if you're using it with a gaming console like a PS2, you'll want to use UAC setting number 2. So you have a choice here and you set it and then forget it. And then the LCD, this is brightness. So do you want the LCD, what brightness do you want the display at? And then do you want to time out 1 minute, 2 minutes, so forth, 30 minutes? I just leave it on all the time. Then the RGB, that's the color of the knobs and so forth. I don't know if you can see it. It's dimming the view panel on the top. It's dimming that LED light, sorry. And then RGB2 would be dimming the lights around the volume knob and the encoder. So I just leave everything at about 3. And then beyond that, we have a sleep timer if you want to. We can update it, and you need to plug it into a PC to do that. We can reset it to its factory setting. That's our firmware version. That's our Bluetooth version. And that gets us out of that. So let's take a look at the back of the unit now. Well, here we are looking at the back of the unit, and I'll start on your right. So we have master power switch, IEC AC power socket. Then we have our Bluetooth antenna. Now this is where it gets really interesting, I think. There is a 12-volt DC power input socket and a switch that allows you to switch between DC or AC power supplies. I tried them both, and in the big room I found the linear power supply on the 12-volt side was a little bit better. We have our Toslink input, coax input, USB on USB-C. And here's where I think it gets really interesting. We've got two balanced outputs, but we also have two single-ended line outputs that are variable. They're controllable by the volume. So on the desktop, I ran out to my amplifier balance and I ran out to the little powered sub that lives under my desk on one of the line outputs. And when I controlled the volume, everything worked wonderfully. So let's take a look at the top of the unit and the inside so you get an idea of what that R2R ladder configuration looks like. Well, there you can see the inside of the unit. I will also put a photograph, closer photograph or a better photograph of the R2R ladder configuration. But the key things are, as you can see, and it's got the lovely little LED light in it, as you can see there are 48 resistors and there's actually 4 rows of 48, again, total of 192. And that gives you the fully differential balance. So on the right channel, this handles a positive waveform, this handles the negative waveform, and you get that common mode rejection, and same on the left channel. So you can see really nicely laid out, really well thought out, and some really good quality components inside. So anyway, that's a look at the interior, more or less, of the K13. Let's talk about the FiiO Control app. Well, before we get started, let me apologize for the audio quality difference. When I record my Android tablet with the little app I use, I have to use the internal microphone. So anyway, here we're looking at the home page of the FiiO Control app once we're connected to the K13 R2R. One of the things that you need to do, and I'm going to go back a screen just to show you, it shows you all your devices. So it can show you any devices you have connected through the FiiO Connect application. To connect, you need to put the device in Bluetooth mode, you need to put your tablet in Bluetooth mode, and you need to pair the two. Once you do, as you see here, it shows the K13 as connected. So if I touch that, it brings us back to the status screen. And it takes a second. My tablet's old and slow, so I apologize for that. But it's loading everything the way we want it to. And you'll see, obviously, the K13, its software version or firmware version. Upper right-hand corner is a gear. That brings us into some settings. We can name the device. We can do a firmware upgrade from here, or we can clear the pairing and take it out of the control app. So go back, and again, I apologize, it's a slow tablet. One of the things I liked about the control app is you can use it to select your input source. Now, the tablet and the K13 are connected via Bluetooth, but I don't have to only use Bluetooth as my source. I can change my source from USB to coaxial to optical or back to Bluetooth if I want to. Now, I also have some just kind of fun stuff. I can control whether or not I want the top light on, change its color. Same with the volume knobs, change its color. Those are kind of fun, kitschy sort of things. Not super useful. Once you do it, you kind of leave it alone and forget it. But down along the bottom, you'll see on the left it says status. In the center it says EQ. So let's go there real quick. And this brings us into the 10-band parametric EQ. As you can see, it's right now in bypass mode. So upper right-hand corner turns the EQ on and off. We have, and just below the left arrow, we have bypass and save. So if I customize one, I can save it. So I'll show you that in just a second. So right now it's a flat line, and as you can see, there are all of our EQ frequencies from 32 hertz to 16 kilohertz. Now, if I touch the bypass button, it brings me into all the preset EQs. So I've got all these preset EQs, and the emphasizing 2 of those. I don't know exactly what they're for because I didn't really play with it, but you have 10 custom EQ slots you can design and build and put in yourself and load them and save them. Now, you can also, through the FiiO website, I believe there is a way that you can share your EQ settings with other users. I didn't try it, so I'm not going to delve into it, but it seems like a kind of a cool feature. So let's pick an EQ setting. We're going to go ahead and let's do a rock setting. Let's go there. And let's go back out to the EQ itself, and it'll take a second as it loads all the parameters. And you'll see the curve now on the top represents the new EQ setting. And as I scroll through the various frequency, you can see their particular settings as well. So a really nice feature in the EQ. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Now, down along the bottom where we saw status EQ, you'll see guide. And this is wonderful. This is an actual online electronic owner's manual for this device. Shows you what everything does, shows you about all the displays, working modes, all the different parameters. Really, really handy, really, really nice. And, you know, I think it's just a wonderful little addition, you know, unexpected, but welcome for sure. So that gets us back to my devices again. That shows all the ones that are there, and that's our status setting right there. So that's the FiiO Control app on an Android tablet. There is an iOS version of it. I obviously haven't tried that, but I really like this little I think it adds some additional useful features, especially if you want to do EQ settings and things like that. It really is invaluable. So, FiiO Control app. Let's get back to the rest of the review. So I thought I'd take a moment and we'll do a little bit of a comparative overview. We're going to compare the K13 to the original K11, a real darling, and we're also going to compare it to the Shanling EH2. So the K13 on its own, fully differential balanced, 24-bit ladder DAC, but XMOS processor and FPGA for DSP, DSD, and some other stuff. And against the app control in the FiiO app. Now on the K11, much simpler, basic, same R2R ladder configuration, but different level of quality on the components inside and power supplies and capacitor values and capacitor quality and all of those kinds of things. At 160 bucks, this is still a little giant. This thing is wonderful, great little headphone amp. Not as powerful, we'll talk about that in just a second. But for the basics, if you just wanted a good mid-price, $150, $160 DAC, consider it. Now the EH2 from Shanling is at $300. This is a beast. This is the same, this is Shanling's take on a 24-bit R2R ladder DAC. But the difference is here, this one will actually do 32-bit 768 and up to DSD 512 for what that's worth. But this thing is an absolute powerhouse. So the K13, 2400 milliwatts, right, at 32 ohms. The K11, 1300 milliwatts at 32 ohms. The Shanling ET2, 4.3 watts at 32 ohms. This thing is a beast. This is a big powerhouse. Now, as far as feature set goes and things like that, the K13, remote control, nice display, the app control, really, really nice. The K11, not as many features, no EQ, none of the Bluetooth stuff, but just as a basic unit, good headphone amp, really good DAC if you wanted to use it just as a DAC, really nice little piece. Now the Shanling EH2, doesn't have remote control, doesn't have a display, has analog, bass, and treble controls. It has all very similar set of inputs, but this is more of kind of I guess an analog or more of a kind of back to basics sort of design. It does have a fully balanced output, but it's on a 4.4 millimeter, and I use a 4.4 to XLR breakout cable, and that's why I can use this to run the subwoofer like I talked about on the back of the K13, and then this going out balanced. This does have oversampling and non-oversampling mode. The difference is if you have some really hard to drive headphones, this will drive a pair of speakers just about at 4.3 watts. So really powerful, really, really good. So overall, I think as far as things go, if you're on a budget and you need something good and don't want to spend a lot of money, the K11. If you got hard to drive headphones and you don't mind, more for desktop use where you're going to be hands-on, excuse me. That's why I quit the circus. I can't juggle anymore. The EH2 is a great choice for that. Now, overall pick, I think the K13 is, above the other units in that you have a remote control, you have the app, you have obviously a full display, you have the ability to run 2-line out, you have the ability to run it on dual different power supplies depending on what your needs are. And I think just overall, it is a better feature set and a little bit better as far as the user interface and things like that. So I would give to the nod on the comparison of these three to the K13, EH2 second, K11 third. So now let's talk about how I tested the K13, where I used it, and what my thoughts were. Well, so to summarize things, on the desktop, the K13 is a star. It really was excellent. As you saw in the B-roll, I had it running into the Cambridge Audio MXW70 amplifier and then out to either a pair of Cambridge SX60s or my Philharmonic True Mini monitors. For my review listening, I didn't use the DDC reclocker. I did do later on, but on the desktop, I thought it was just absolutely beautiful, good sound. Now, with headphones, I thought it's very powerful. It had no trouble driving any of the headphones. I thought it gave the headphones the signal that each of those headphones needed to perform at their top level. It was great sounding with all the headphones. The Meze 109 Pro sounded great. The FT5s and FT7s, even the Hifi and Diva Pros, although they have a little extra energy, so I'd recommend running this in non-oversampling mode with a headphone like that. The Shanling HW600s, good detail, good bass, everything was just wonderful. Had a nice head stage, good sense of space, very quiet background, really nice, just really rewarding to listen to with headphones, and really rewarding on the desktop. But I was so impressed with this thing that I knew I had to put it in the big room and really listen to it on some very highly resolving gear. Well, I was excited to get it in the big room and really listen to it on some very good reference gear. And so I did. I slotted it into my normal reference system, which you guys are probably sick of hearing it, is the A12 Classic from Advanced Paris. I did feed it Artivana via USB through a USB isolator. And I just used it that way. I didn't use a DDC reclocker. And then I ran it out to a variety of speakers, from the Magnapan 2.7s to the Opera Prima. And I used my big Wharfdales. I also used for a brief period of time the CSS1 TDXs. And I was very, very taken with the performance of this unit. As I mentioned, at $320, if you have a budget upwards of $450, maybe $500, you got to put this on your short list. It performs that well, just as a DAC. Never mind, it's a great headphone amp and a nice desktop preamp. It's a really wonderful piece. So I didn't use any DDC reclockers for my critical review listening, and I found the unit to have all of the characteristics of the R2R sound that I love so much. It had that very smooth and cohesive, kind of very natural mid-range, a very refined treble. It is very much not warm like tube warm, but warm and smooth. I guess I can interchange those two terms. Very warm and smooth, beautiful reproduction, very friendly, very engaging, and you know, I think all the details there, although in non-oversampling mode, it was beautiful, warm, lush, all of that wonderful stuff. In oversampling mode, I felt like I got a little extra detail, maybe in the upper mid-range, lower treble, and then on the top end, there was maybe a sense of a little extra air. Whether or not the detail resolution was significantly different, it was just the presentation made the oversampling mode sound a little more detailed. Never fatiguing, never strident, never harsh, just a little extra detail. I found both modes to be very rewarding. Now, I primarily left it non-oversampling mode because I'm a lazy old man, and you got to go over and you got to touch the unit to switch modes. You can't do it from the remote control, and you can't do it from the app. I wish they would add that, but again, that adds complexity, and you know, at 320 bucks, they're packing this thing full of tons of performance. Now, on dynamics and transients, I felt in non-oversampling mode, the dynamics were really good, well reproduced, but maybe just ever so slightly truncated. I thought the decays, the upper frequencies in those decays, maybe the edges of the decays, just slightly rounded off. But it's hard to tell. Now in oversampling mode, I felt like dynamics were a little better. I don't know if the sense of dynamics being slightly truncated is because of the warm tonal character or the smooth tonal character versus kind of a little bit, and I don't want to say energetic because it's not fatiguing and it's not strident. In the oversampling mode, it was just a little, it seemed a little faster, and it seemed like the edges of those decays were just a little better defined, a little better sharper, a little better sharpness. Absolutely wonderful reproduction. Now for soundstage, it has all of the characteristics of an R2R DAC that I'm so attracted to. The soundstage itself is wide, very stable, very good instrument layering, very good center focus. Is the instrument placement razor sharp? No, but here's the way I look at it. You know, you can look at a really nice 20 megapixel photograph and everything is sharp and detailed, and you know, and all of that resolution is there. For me, I'm kind of more, I like impressionist paintings. So I want, you know, a little Monet, a little Manet, a little Van Gogh, excuse me. I want that just general sense of where things are. I don't need them to be razor sharp. I want that kind of overall feeling of everything's where it should be. Everything's placed appropriately. It's good layers. Doesn't need to be the deepest soundstage in the world. And at this price, it doesn't give you that, but God, it's rewarding. It's very good. But I get that beautiful kind of presentation, like an impressionist painting of where all the instruments were and placed and so forth. And that for me is what's rewarding. I just want the music to wash over me, and I want that sense of kind of space and air, but it doesn't need to be razor sharp. And then again, on the detail and transparency side, as I mentioned, I think in non-oversampling mode, I was satisfied with all of the detail. I was also very satisfied with it in oversampling mode. So in non-oversampling mode, I thought, again, that smooth sound, really good detail. Oversampling mode made a little extra detail, but just in the edges. It's a subtle difference, but noticeable. and really, really rewarding. So now that's using it without a DDC reclocker. I did, and on the desk and in the big room, I did use either the SMSL PO100 Pro or the Duke U2 Pro. As both those units are virtually, as near as makes no difference, identical sonically and performance-wise. I just happen to like the form factor of the Duke a little better, and that's all. So I don't remember which one I had in there, but putting the little DDC reclocker on there, wow, that opened things up from a soundstage standpoint. My impressionist painting got a little more focused. The layers got a little better defined. The soundstage width increased. The depth got a little deeper. Focus was a little better. Detail was better rendered. And again, in oversampling and non-oversampling mode, those differences were oversampling mode, maybe a little extra air on the top end, a little extra detail on the edges, and the non-oversampling mode, that really nice, kind of almost lush, warm, beautiful soundstage and sound. So either way, very, very good. I was so satisfied. It's actually, I just took the unit out for filming the video. It's been in the big room for quite a while, and I've been listening to it frequently. It is very comparative to the units I already mentioned. Now, from a DAC alone standpoint, let me grab something real quick. At the $320 that this is headphone amp, DAC, and desktop preamp, I would say I would choose that over the SMSL D200. This is the ROM chip DAC, and I like this DAC a lot. It's really good. As a Delta Sigma DAC, it's good. But I'll tell you what, I think this is a better sound overall, more pleasing to my ear. And again, they're about the same price. So this thing does definitely, I think, punch above its weight class just as a DAC. And again, I've talked about it being a really good headphone amp. I've talked about it being a really good desktop preamp. But just as a DAC alone, it is a remarkable piece and well worth your consideration. Add a little, $70, $80 DDC reclocker, and I'm telling you, you will compete. You'll get as good or better sound than if you spent $500 or $600, probably even maybe $600 on a DAC. I really was pleased with the sound, and overall, the K13 R2R from FiiO gets a big endorsement from me, really big. Really like this unit. Well, this is Ed doing editing on the FiiO K13 R2R DAC video, and I just got an email from FiiO. They're going to take this 24-bit R2R ladder DAC assembly and put it into a standalone DAC with tubes. I don't have any specifics on it. I have a picture of it. I'll insert it there. But this looks really cool. So I mentioned the K13 and the DDC reclocker and all that other stuff. If you're thinking about it, let's wait and see what this new unit is. They are sending me one, so I will have it soon. I don't know what it's going to be, but again, a full R2R ladder, standalone R2R ladder DAC with tubes from FiiO. It ought to be really interesting. Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in the video real quick. Well, before we wrap things up, big shout out to Apos Audio for sending this unit in to me for review. Thank you guys. They had no influence over the review in any way, shape, or form, and in the spirit of full disclosure, there will be an Apos Audio affiliate link for this product if you are interested in purchasing one. Well, that's my review of the FiiO K13 R2R. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you'd consider giving the video a like. Hopefully you'd consider subscribing to the channel. Maybe you want to ring the bell so you get notified the next time I put out a video. I would like to take a moment and thank my current channel members and subscribers. Your guys' support is greatly appreciated. Thank you, thank you. There's also a pin, in the pinned comment and video description, is a link to join the channel if you want to, a channel membership link. There will be in the video description a Spotify, Qobuz, and Tidal link to the Old Guy Hi-Fi Test Tracks Volume 1. I used a number of those tracks in the evaluation of this piece. There's also a link to the Community Post playlist. Please check that out. Wonderful music there. There are a few affiliate links in the video description. You guys know how those work. Comment. Let me know your thoughts. I'm not kidding. This thing is really good. If you're looking to get into the R2R ladder DAC sound world, and if you're on a real tight budget, consider the K11. It does very well. But if you want to step it up, the K13 with the XMOS processor and the FPGA elevates its game, and I'm not kidding. Add a little DDC reclocker or SMSL or Duke, whichever one you like, and it brings this thing up a level. Now, does it compete against, $1,000 DACs? Well, no, but at its price, it is a huge value. It is quite good. It gets you most of the way there, more than satisfactory. Anyway, share with me your thoughts and comments on it. So I've covered all the bases on the K13, probably covered too many bases. Sorry about that. Anyway, please consider liking, please consider subscribing, comment always. Follow me on Instagram if you'd like to. My name is Ed Homewood. This is the Old Guy Hi-Fi channel, and please take some time today to put on the music you love. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy yourself. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I really hope you have a wonderful day.